P. Shah. His title is Storytelling Through the Ages, Unveiling Its Value as a Pedagogical Tool. So Fenal is presently working as Innovation and Human Skills Lead for Talent and Transformation. He has over 24 years of professional IT experience, including learning and talent transformation. He has spent 8 years in the US working directly with the client. He's an accredited business storytelling, innovation, design thinking, and creativity coach with deep propensity in philosophy and spirituality. There's a whole big bio there, but I think I'll let your presentation do the talking. Thank you.
Namo Nama. I will just say, remember the Guru here, Tasmai Shri Guru Ve Nama. This presentation of storytelling, I like to call out my team also who has been helping me, Dr. Shruti Shrina, Gaurang Bhatt and Manisha Dhiman, and supported by Jumana. So they all have been supporting me in crafting up this storytelling down the ages. And we really had a very interesting time while researching on the paper as well as coming up with this presentation. So, long time ago, there was a town called Rampur. And in this town, there was a Nawab. This Nawab was actually suffering from a very bad ailment. And he was not able to talk at all. So, a lot of local physicians nearby, they tried to help him. But ultimately was not getting recovered. One of his ministers then thought that the situation is getting complex. He announced a reward. Whoever will come and definitely heal him, we will give him a large reward. There came one Vaidya, his name was Leeladhar. And the moment the Leeladhar came, he saw the entire situation and then he asked them, now you tell me how I want to cure the king. Do I make him see the medicines or do I make him take the medicine? Now, people were very confused. What does it mean? You are saying seeing the medicine or taking the medicine or eating the medicine. They said, obviously we'll prefer that he doesn't consume the medicine. So he said, okay, fine, get me 50 lemons and a knife. So the team went, they got this whole lemons and a knife. And what this Leeladhar did? He actually sat in front of the Nawab with the lemons and started cutting one by one. What happened with that? Looking at those lemons, right? A lot of rasa started getting extracted from the cuff which was there, formed inside the Nawab's chest, started dissolving. And ultimately what happened? Looking at the juicy lemons, Nawab was able to slowly, saliva started coming out, the cuff got dissolved and Nawab started talking again. Why did I tell you this? Similar to this, exactly what happens, right? What is story? Why stories are there? As a rational human being, whenever we approach any concept, fundamental questions come to our mind. What are those fundamental questions? I like to ask you, what are those fundamental questions? What are those fundamental questions? Whenever you approach any topic, as a rational human being, what are the questions that comes to our mind? Purpose, why? How, right? What, right? So let us discover the world of storytelling with those questions. Why, what, and how, right? So this is why stories are important and why stories really work. If you see that, exactly like stories, lemons, they extract the learning juices out of our mind. Stories are like those lemons. They actually take the learnings out of the mind and they increase the stickiness of the message, engaging the learner in a memorable way. That is one beautiful book in the Western world written by Cheap and Enden. They talk about made to stick. So we all know post-it, right? You all have seen post-it. They stick on the wall. They say, what is story? Story is the mental post-it. It sticks right here. That is the stickiness of the message. And our ancestors knew exactly the same. And that is why They're leveraging the power of stories as a pedagogy in promoting all the wisdom and the knowledge here. So with that, let us dwell deeper into the storytelling in ancient Bharat. There are multiple purposes, right? The first and foremost purpose was to imbibe values, because for us that was a central theme of anything. So if you look at our ityas, namely the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, right? So if you look at those ityas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, these are our epics. They're embedded in imbibing values. They're embedded, and why they want to provide values so that we can live. It is said Mahabharata Panchmo Veda. Whatever is not there in Mahabharata is not there in the world. So every value what we require to be developed, we can develop through those epics. And then we have the nectar of knowledge, right? Which right now also the previous speaker touched upon, the Upanishads. Upanishads are the wealth of our knowledge, the wisdom. But all the wisdom are how? Morning also, Sir Nagaraj sir was talking. It's a dialogue, it's a story between Guru and Shishya. They are asking questions, doing dialogue, discussion. Take story of Satyakam, take story of Nachiket, take story of Svetketu. Take any story. All these are in form of all the Upanishads are in form of stories. Upanishad, up means going near, and then understanding the forms. These are all stories. Deepest philosophical roots, where we have the deepest concepts like Am Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Pragnanam Brahma, Ayam Atmanam Brahma. But finally they are in form of stories. Svetketu, Tattvamasi, Svetketu. All these are in form of stories. So this is our Upanishad. Then if you build upon that, Panchatantra. Exactly the origination of Panchatantra is stories. Chakarta tales, which we all know about, is the previous births of Buddha, which is also in form of stories. Sanskrit drama, Kalidas drama, which we've been seeing, and then even now the Puranas. All the Purans, they are rooted in stories. So, if you look at this, the whole purpose of having character development, because that is the central focus of our ancient heritage. Seelam Param Bhushanam. There has to be a development of character. The wisdom has to be transmitted, and the values have to be imbibed. And the best way to do that is a story. Now you will tell me, what is a story? If I ask you, we say, okay, story, kahani. What exactly you mean? So for doing that, I just want to ask you one question. Okay? Let me first, okay, I think there is an old slide that has come. This is an old flow. So while he brings it up, I wanted to tell you about what is the point. You learn in geometry what is the point, right? What is the point? Can anybody tell me what is the point? What is the point in a line? Tiniest thing, right? You taught zero dimension entity, right? That is the point. Then what is a line? Sorry? Yeah, the shortest distance between 2 points is a line. So the point is a zero-dimensional entity where there is no breadth and no breadth, and a line is the shortest distance between the 2 points. So the shortest distance between 2 points is a line. Shortest distance between 2 points is a line. The shortest way to connect between two humans is a story. The shortest way to connect between two humans is a story, and that's the power of a story. Story makes us connect. Stories makes us connect, and that is why we use stories. Right? In our pedagogy. They really work. So this is what I was talking. The shortest way between between two humans is a story. Now building upon that, right? What exactly are the story? Yeah, this is fine. Perfect. Thank you, sir. There are story. What story is of 5 fundamental story elements, right? Which are going there. What are those story elements which we are talking? The first story element, which we are given acronym as 5S. The first story element is the story plot. It's a sequence of events that drives the story. So every story has a plot, and the plot can be very complex. For example, in Mahabharata, we have a very complex plot of Bhagavad Gita, where it was sung in a battlefield, and in which a song was preached in a battlefield, and that to a philosophical song, right? Very contradictory. In battlefield, it's about killing, but here the philosophy is preached. So that is about the plot. The second thing what you see here is the character, the story lead. So who are the story leads? Story leads are the ones who are the unique personality or who gets impacted by the story, who drives the story forward. In Mahabharata, it is said there are 1,000 stories. There are thousands characters, more than 100 characters which have been displayed by Vedvyas. Maharishi Vedvyas talk about more than 100 characters. They are in the shade of black and white both. While Vedvyas has highlighted the negative aspects of Pandavas, he has also highlighted the good qualities of Karna. So that is a character, the story lead. The third part is the setting, right? What does the setting does? Setting does is the date, time, location. That is a setting, and it helps us to move the story forward. And the setting goes in a different way. For example, in Puran, when you start, it first starts with Rishi Ujjaswava in the Naimisharan forest, and then the setting suddenly goes, because it talks about Dashavatara, the setting goes in different avatars. The setting keeps changing. And then we talk about the fourth part, which is about the struggle. What is the struggle? Struggle is the obstacle which we've gone through. And there are also different types of conflicts. Every story has a conflict. And conflicts are of different type. They are not as simple as just between dharma and adharma, which happened between Pandavas and Kauravas. But for Arjun, it was not about dharma and adharma. Arjun, it was about the conflict between two dharmas, between two duties. Should I follow my Shishya dharma or should I follow my Kshatriya dharma? How can I? Katam Gishmam Rohancha. That is what his question to Krishna. So it's a conflict can be very complex. And the last one, right, is the central theme, substance. What is the central message you are trying to convey through your thing? So all this considered 5S. So this is what story means. And if you really do a literature review of our ancient knowledge, you will find this is rooted everywhere. In anything what you come. I'll give you two examples. The first one I'll give you the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, right? So in this Bhruguvali Upanishad, in which it starts, what is the plot? Plot is that Bhrigu approaches his father Varuni, and that said, Varun and said, I want to get the Brahmagnan. I want the knowledge. So he asked the thing, okay, how do I get that? So he approaches his father and he says, I want to get this knowledge. Bhrugevo Varuni, Varunam Pitrum Upsara, Adi Bhagwa Brahmeti. And then what happens? Then who are the characters? Varun and Bhrigu. Then Bhrigu said, okay, fine. For that, you need to do tapas. And for that tapas, asked to seek eternally, you do the tapas. Tapo Brahmeti, Satapo Tapyatat. He went to first tapas, and then the struggle comes. There's a beautiful struggle. Why? Because in first, when he goes to the struggle, he realized Anna is everything. From Annam Jatani Jivanti, Annam Prayatna Visham Vishanti iti. Then he realizes, no, Anna is not the everything. Then he goes to Pranamay, then he goes to Manomay, then he goes to Vignanamay, and finally Anandmay goes. That is what is Anando Brahmeti Vejanata. Anandena Jatani Jivanti. So that's the realization. And so that body is the Panchakosha, and we got to the ultimate bliss. So if you could look at these 5 things, which is the story, the lead, the setting, the struggle, and the substance, they all come together. That's the 5S, right? Similarly, let me give you another example of Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. It's a very powerful example. The reason is, in the Ramayana Balkand, after the Ram has completed all his knowledge with Vashishta, Vishwamitra comes and says, I want Ram and Lakshman. That time Dashrath resists that. Dashrath said, I don't want to give. You want to protect Yagna, I am there, I am very powerful. He said, no, I want Ram and Lakshman. So it was a pretext of taking him, is it time? No. 3 minutes more. Oh my, okay. Now to take him for this thing, to play the protects of the Yagna, he said, I want to actually take Ram and Lakshman to the learning journey. And what he did, more than 40 days he traveled across different places. There the story of history was taught, geography was taught, the astronomy was taught. Right? He told about story of Ganga, story of Samudra Manthan, story of Mithila. Everything was taught, and it took more than 41 days to reach Mithila. And that is why it said, Yasesam Sverkata Sa Evam Bhavanti Sastrani. It was a living, moving universe. Morning it wakes up, and in the morning it starts with the wake up, and everything what was there is the pedagogy of story. And stories work. There was no formal classes. There was no formal lectures. It was all stories. And where Ram and Lakshman got education. Similarly in Panchatantra, but I'm not going to cover that, because the next speaker is going to address it. But the very purpose that Amar Shakti employed Vishnu Sharma was because his 3 children were unable to learn the politics, administration, and diplomacy. For that, he has to make it simple and use the power of story. Now, what I just want to quickly touch upon is the power of the science. What happens? Whenever you have a story, there is a neocortex, there is an evolved brain, and that is a reptilian brain which is below. Whenever there is a story, it bypasses the neocortex and touches the reptilian brain, and the emotions are invoked. That is why the stories are 22 times more powerful. 22 times more powerful. And imagine we are not using it. You have 24,000 verses in Ramayana and more than 1 lakh in Mahabharata. How do you remember? Because we are more likely to remember than in form of stories. A lot of other neuroscience and neural activity. in making it very simple because of the time, but there is a research in the Uriason Research Institute that whenever I'm telling a story and someone is listening a story, they observe the pattern of neurons that fires. The pattern of neurons that fires from the listener's brain is exactly the same as that fires in the receiver's brain, which is called as neural coupling. And there is a mirroring of neurons. So, and there is a cortisol activity observed, not only the language processing part, but the motor, the vortal, all other areas get highlighted and they are activated. That's the power of story. And the wonder thing, neurotransmitter, oxytocin, aplastic connection, and there is dopamine, which has the pleasure and recall, and the cortisol, which has an attention. This is the power of neuroscience. Now, ethos, pathos, logos. This was taught by Aristotle. Ethos is the credential. Logos is the logic. We all talk about that. But what about pathos? We completely ignore that. Unless you don't have pathos, you cannot feel and you cannot connect. And that is why it is equally important along with the credibility, along with the logic. We focus so much on logic that we ignore the pathos part. And pathos can only come with storytelling. Now, there are a lot of aspects of storytelling, but I just want to specifically cover, which was ma'am asked, pedagogy of teaching subject. When Leelavati was also coined, I'll just make it brief. When Leelavati was also divided, Siddhant Shiromani, 4 parts, Leelavati, Bij Ganit, Grah Ganit, and Gol Vidya. If you see that, the entire examples of how the mathematics was taught was in form of a story. Like a person going on a Tirth Yatra, he said, I spent 1/2 of my thing to Prayag. Then I did 2/3, I donated to Ujjain. Then I spent 1/4 in the tax. And this did everything. Later on, I came with 63 coins. How many coins I had? This is how the story is there. He's going on a Tirth Yatra, you need to do a donation. Way of thinking, way of life also comes. It's a very different. You look at our algebra, mathematics, what we learn. I have 4 chocolates, I give to how much I have. It is all about I. And here there is a completely different pedagogy of life. The way of life is taught, right? Lot of examples. This was an example of the elephant, about how his fragrance is there, and lot of other things are there. But like that, multiple examples there in Leelavati. Same thing if you see, there is also about astronomy. Rahu, Ketu, the 2 demons swelling it, and we know the scientific evidence behind that. So it is there dealt in detail in my paper. There are storytelling techniques which are covered. In the interest of time, I'm not going to dwell, but there are metaphor, rhetorical question, foreshadowing, symbolism, simile, repetition, parallelism, antithesis, and many of them. Let me dwell upon a couple of them just in a very quick time. Let's talk about metaphor. Like now, previously only you mentioned about metaphor. So there is a beautiful metaphor in Mahabharata when it starts. It talks about dharmati and adharmatri. This resolves all the doubts what these people have today. They glorify Karna and they pacify Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is put as the root of our dharma. There should be no doubt about that, what Vedvyas says about it. And Karna is the stem of the tree of Duryodhan. So let's put all our doubts aside where Vedvyas places them. Dharmati and adharmatri is there in the Anukarmika Parma of the Adi Parva in Mahabharata. What is the root stem of dharmati, adharmatri? Similarly, we know the image of the Rathi, right? It is there in the Kato Upanishad, where Atman is the driver sitting on it. The mind and the reins, the horses are the senses, and the intellect is the one who is the driver. What is the sequence? Sequence should be the sitting soul should give intellect, intellect should give to mind, mind to give to the senses. If you change it, what happens? Horses see something, runs away. This is what happens in our life. Beautiful metaphor, explain the analogy of life, story. Similarly, rhetorical question, Keno Upanishad, Om Kede Chitam Kene Siddha. Who drives it? Where is my mind? Am I talking? Who is talking? I am hearing. Who is listening? Where is the mind getting the thing? Rhetorical questioning is a very, very powerful tool. Foreshadowing, giving an advance notification. When someone steps down, he says, Ande ka putra anda. This was a foreshadow, or omens, bad omens coming when Duryodhan gets blind. Yeah, I'll just finish it. So like that, symbolism is also there, Bhishma Pratigna, etc. I will just end this, that these are the purpose of all these stories are to create pride, develop through identity, to have character development, integrated personality. And this is the mind map of the entire of my paper, which we can share later. But finally, what I want to say is that today, since there is an August forum here, this should not be just be an academic exercise, academic paper. This should be a collaboration between industry and academia. How can we make storytelling as a new age skill? How can we take it to the next level, where pedagogy of storytelling gets in every subject, where there are monuments, scriptures, etc. We have Statue of Equality, Oneness, and Unity. How can we use stories there? How can we take stories to the grassroots level? How can we have trained the trainers workshop? These are some open questions which we need to understand and collaborate together. With this, I'll just pause here in interest of time, and very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Fenal ji. Round of applause.